to focus on here. The two most important things about this setup. One of them is written here on the handle. Unfortunately, it's in black on a black handle, so you can't really see it. But it says, shut off pump before rotating valve. It's extremely important. Do not try to turn this valve while it's under pressure. These valves here, I don't really care about those, okay? That's not going to hurt anything. This one here, you can blow the seal out of it if you try to move it while it's under pressure. It's a repairable thing, not that big of a deal, but it's a pain in the butt. Second most important thing, and probably one of the biggest issues, and one of the biggest things that happens with these filters that causes a problem is, if you backwash, you have to add fresh DE.
Okay.
If you backwash, you have to add fresh DE. That's the filter powder. It's over there in that box, diatomaceous earth. What exists inside this filter is, for all intents and purposes, not the filter. That powder is the filter. When you backwash that powder out, takes all the dirt with it.
So then you add it after.
And you add it after.
Okay.
If you don't, then what you've got is the grid system that's inside of this is now exposed to all the dirt. So instead of the dirt coming in and sticking to the DE, which very easily blows out, the dirt gets stuck inside of all these grids, and you're going to run high pressure all the time. So you'll see right now your pressure's at about 10 psi. That's pretty average. When it's time to clean this filter, it's indicated by an increase of pressure of 10 psi, which this thing will tell you right here. We got an arrow now set to 10 psi. When it gets to 20, it's time to clean it.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so just pay attention. It started there. When it gets to there, it's time to clean.
Where do you put the stuff in?
The DE goes in through the skimmer with the pump running.
Oh, so I don't have to take anything apart.
No.
That's good. Okay.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
If you don't put the DE in the filter, then you have to take it apart, because now you've clogged this thing, and a backwash isn't going to work. So you got to take it apart. So if ever you backwash the filter, always add DE.
Well, don't you backwash all the time?
About once a month.
Okay.
About once a month, or when the pressure increases. So like right now, you're looking at the water, and it's a little bit funky. This pressure's probably going to go up a little bit faster, but probably not. Like, you shouldn't have to backwash this weekend.
Okay.
You might not have to backwash next week. In 2 weeks, you might have to backwash. So don't be like, well, Brad said every 30 days, and it hasn't been 30 days. That's kind of a law of the average. Pay attention to the pressure, and that's going to tell you when it needs to happen. But just always remember, if you backwash the filter, add DE. Trust me. It's probably 2 calls this week. My filter pressure keeps going up. I'm like, did you backwash the filter? Yes. Did you add DE? I don't even know what DE is. And I'm like, I was there. I told you what it was.
So you turn off the thing, you move the thing to backwash.
We're going to install this discharge hose on this line. Okay. You'll roll that out probably towards the street.
Right. Okay.
Then you'll fire this thing up. You'll watch this little sight glass here is going to go from clear to murky, from murky back to clear. That's an indicator that your backwash has been successful. You turn the pump back off, rotate this back to filter, and then start it back up with the pool running. Add your DE through the skimmer.
So after you start everything back up, you put the DE.
That's correct. Okay. Yeah, you remember you need the water to be flowing in order to get the DE into here.
Okay. And you just dump it right into the skimmer?
Slowly. Okay. Yeah, you don't take like the whole bag and just, dump it in. The bags that are inside there are 6-pound bags. So because we just fired this thing up for the first time, fresh and clean, takes a 6-pound bag to fully charge it.
Oh, okay.
We suggest that on your subsequent backwashes, you decrease that dosage by about 2 pounds. So a 6-pound bag, add 2/3 of it. Reason being is you're going to get some residual that's going to stay inside the tank. A backwash is not 100% squeaky clean inside of here. It's getting the bulk of the dirt out. It's getting the bulk of the DE out, but there's still some left in there. So we assume that it's about 2 pounds. You adding 4 now brings it back up to the same 6, whereas if you didn't do that, it would go from 6 to 8 to 10 to 12. By the end of the season, you can barely lift this thing out of here because it's so heavy and so clogged down with DE.
Okay.
So, that's how that works. Like I said, pay attention to the gauge. If the gauge after 30 days hasn't increased by 10 pounds, I recommend just backwashing, because the DE will become less effective. Even if the pressure's not up, after 30 days, you've started to wear this filter media down, and it's good practice to blow it out, and start over fresh. What we have going on over here, so you've got 3 lines here with valves coming into the front of the pump. Skimmer, drain. Okay, so the drain is by itself, and then your 2 skimmers are over here. So these valves, it's important to pay attention to the fact that the off tab points to what's off. So right now I just turned off one of the skimmers. Not necessarily sure which one it is, but it's one of them. Right now nothing's off, and there I just turned off the other skimmer. Okay? A lot of people look at it and say, well, the valve handle in line with the pipe means it's open, right? Don't pay attention to that. Throw it out. Okay?
Normal pipes are like that.
Correct. Pay attention to the off tab.
Okay.
You want the off tab in normal operating mode to point to nothing, because you don't want anything off. You want your skimmers open. You want your drains open. You want everything to be able to flow into the pump.
When you say drain, is that the bottom of the?
Yeah. It's called the main drain.
Is it taking in water from there too?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's called the main drain because if you did want to drain the pool fully, you could pull from that drain, discharge out the hose, and you could drain the pool in its entirety.
Okay.
Through there, this is a check valve, which Mitch, before you go, will shut the system back down. We need to rotate this check valve so that the gate is here. They come out of the box this way, but normal operation, the gate's going to be here, so that when this pump shuts off, that gate closes and the water doesn't run back out. Since we're slightly above water level here, we want that check valve to be functioning properly to hold the water into the system, so that when you turn that pump on, it primes right up. That's obviously your pump. It's got a basket in there. About once a week or so, you shut the pump off, open that up. It's basically just those 2 handles. Turn them, open that up, take that basket out, just dump the leaves and debris, whatever ends up in there.
Oh, that's like a secondary skimmer?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so a little bit of stuff ultimately, because it'll get past the main drains, might get past the skimmer basket, gets caught here. Dump that out. Mitch, kick the filter off for me. I'll just go through that real quick.
Yeah, this is supposed to be on.
So I'm going to do something here real quick because the check valve's currently not. So right now what I just did is I shut off that flow.
Okay.
So once the check valve's installed, that's going to do that for you.
Okay.
This here. So there's your pump basket.
Oh, okay.
It's got a little stuff in it. Just kind of tap it like that. Yeah, get most of the stuff out. The throat, believe it or not, people will take it and they'll get it like that. Even though you have to force it in there, they'll force it in there. The throat needs to go in the front. So that's where your water comes in. If that's not put in there properly, all your junk is going to get around it and go into the impeller and clog it up. So make sure that the throat lines up with the pipe.
Okay.
You've got a rubber seal inside there. Sometimes that seal, it's just a big O-ring. It might want to come off of that. Okay, so just make sure that O-ring's in place, because without that O-ring, this lid's not going to seal and that pump's not going to prime.
Okay.
So always just kind of hold that in place,
Okay.
right? And set this in here. Just a little turn. You don't have to go crazy with it. That O-ring's going to seal. So Mitch, you can go ahead and turn that valve, or turn the pump on. I'll turn the valve. It's going to take a second, prime itself back up. So after doing stuff like that, after doing backwashes and whatever, I always recommend, even if it's beyond the hours of operation, I always recommend fire everything back up. Make sure you've got pressure. Make sure you've got a good prime there. Make sure everything's running, and then feel free to shut it off.
Okay.
What I don't want you to do is to have done everything that I just did there. You empty that and you put the lid back and say, okay, the basket's clean, you walk away. Because guess what? I had that valve turned so that the water wouldn't flow. You could do something like that and you're not paying attention. You walk away from it. The next day this thing kicks on. You've starved it for water and it's going to try to fire up and the pump runs dry.
Yeah.
You know, so good practice. Just whatever you're doing, if you've shut the system off, start the system back up. Make sure that it's running and doing what it's supposed to do before you walk away from it. because otherwise it's going to come on and do something tomorrow by itself, and that might not be what you want it to do. I say this as a guy who was in the middle of a backwash of a pool.
Oh, okay, good.
So we were backwashing, I was backwashing a big commercial pool over on the shore, and the power went out. So normal circumstances, before I would leave, I'd make sure everything was running, right? Power went out. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I finished going, I was going, power's still out. I'll leave. I didn't put all the valves back. Power comes back on a few hours later. Pool starts to drain. So it was like 50,000 gallons of water going. You know, and I mean, kind of my fault.
Yeah.
But kind of not. Like, I didn't ask for the power to go out, you know what I mean? But it did.
Yeah.
So that's why I always tell people, it's just good practice to make sure before you've walked away that, barring a power outage,
Right.
this filter is doing what it's supposed to be doing.
What's the green nozzle up there?
That's just an extra hose bib. How you doing, sir?
Okay.
So this is what we utilize for pressurizing the system.
Okay.
While we're under construction, that's where we put our air
Oh,
in.
okay. So I don't worry about that.
It
then.
can also be used for pumping air into the system for winterization.
Okay.
It can also be used for slowly discharging water out of the pool. Okay, so if you hook a garden hose up to that and you want to discharge some water out of the pool, you can do so there. You could do it faster here
Right.
through the waste option right here, and you would have to run that hose out. The thing is, if you use the multi-port, you're using that pump at its full capacity, you're going to discharge some water out pretty quick. Everything good, sir? Excellent, thank you. You're going to discharge the water out pretty quick, so don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Stay here, let it do its thing, and then put it all away. If you got to walk away for, 20, 30 minutes, you're like, hey, I need to run some water out of this thing, but I'm going to go pick some weeds. Hook it up here, open that up, come back in 30 minutes, let it run for a little bit longer. This year, you don't have that.
Okay. It's not
if
fast.
you're going through this, I mean, you're moving that water out of there, pretty quickly. So, you need to pay attention to it and monitor it while you're doing that.
Right.
This here is your booster pump for the cleaner. Again, it picks up its water right here, so if there's no water running through this pipe, it's not going to get water. And that pipe is obviously coming from this filter, comes back, runs through the cleaner line, and that's what drives your cleaner. This is your water temperature sensor. We're going to get that installed probably in this pipe right here.
Okay.
And that's the basics. Where Mitch is standing, that'll be your heater at some point.
Okay.
These two valves are your heater bypass.
I don't know what they did.